Hey y'all, this is Jimmy from Home and Creek Outdoors. This is going to be the actual tanning process of the squirrels. I've done one squirrel already. Here's the other squirrel. And all we did was just cut the head open and got the brains, mix it in with a little bit of water, and heated it up just a little bit. You don't want it to boil, but you just want to heat it up for a little bit, and then you can use a chopstick or maybe a fork, and you just mix it around, mix the brains around, and just try to get them to loosen up a little bit into little pieces. And then what you want to do is you can get you a little paintbrush like this, just a little sponge brush, or you can just use your hands. But what I'll do is I'll just get some of that mixture and go right in the middle of the squirrel and then just squeeze it out and start rubbing it in. And you want this to be a little bit warm when you do this too. That way it'll penetrate better. But you just start rubbing it in. And each squirrel has approximately, or each animal in that fact, has enough brains to tan its own hide. It has just enough for itself. Now you can, if you killed a deer and you didn't want to tan the hide for it, then you could get the brains out of that and use it to tan other animals. I know I've had possum skin and a few other skins that I had to tan, and I didn't have no brains or nothing, and I wanted to try brain tanning, and I had a pig skull. I cut the brains out of the pig skull and used the pig skull to get the brain out, and then used the brains out of that and tanned a few skins, and they turned out just fine, like you use their own brain. You wouldn't never be able to tell the difference. But you just want to work this in real good, and if you want to, you can hold it in your hand and work it in. But you want to get it in every nook and cranny of the squirrel skin. You just want to work it in real good and everything. You want it, when you get it fully tanned, you want it to be real pliable and everything. And that'll help you, give you like a little advantage during the softening process. Now, if you're going to leave the head on the fur, then you really want to make sure that you get up there and around the head real good and everything. If you don't get in there, then that's one of the places that you'll definitely lose some fur. And you just want to work it in real good until you run out of brain mixture. And once you run out of brain mixture, you're just gonna fold it up skin on skin. And once you fold it up, you just can sit it under something heavy for approximately 24 hours and come back the next day or so, depending on how long you want to leave it on there. But you just come back, and once you come back, you unfold it, and then that's when you start the softening process. But as you can see, skin's already pretty pliable compared to what it was. It wouldn't do much of anything. And you put that salt on there, and there wasn't no moisture in the salt that we had put on these squirrel skins due to us drying them. The drying process got quite a bit of that moisture out of them. So we can reuse the salt that doesn't have any moisture, but if you got any moisture in that salt, then you want to just toss it and not use it. But anything that's just like it came out of the bottom, you can use. But there wasn't no moisture at all that I could see that came off of this, came off of these squirrels. And like I said in the previous video, you can completely skip that process of drying and just go straight to the tanning process or the salting process, and go straight to the salting process. That'll help you a little bit, but at the same time, once you apply the brains onto it, any of that excess salt, if you don't get it off, it could just soak up the brains and it'd be really hard to get a nice tan on there. So if you do just go straight to the salt, then you want to make sure that you get all of the brains, all of the salt off of the skin before you go into tanning. That way that the tanning solution will take really good to the skin. But for this, I just got a little bit of water, not a whole lot, and put it into the microwave with the brains in it and heated it up that way. Or you could also heat some water on a fire. You don't need very much for squirrel. You want the less water you have, the better, really. That way you can have more brain getting into the animal hide instead of water. But you just heat it up on there for a few minutes. Don't get it to a boil. And once you heat it up, it'll be ready to go. Just mix it up and stir it around. Try to get them brains all broken up, and you'll have it good and ready to be put onto the animal hide. And you just want to rub it in real good. And like I said a few minutes ago, you just want to make sure that you get all around the head if you're going to save the head on here. Some people, they might like to cut the head off of the main hide, but they might like to use it for something else. So if you was to do that, you would still just want to make sure that you get it real nice and worked in on the head. That's one of the hardest parts, because you've got the ears, the eyes, and the nose, and some of the fur on the head likes to overlap if you tack it down. Unless you cut through the nose and it fans out perfectly, then you'll have skin that overlaps, and if you don't get in them little spots, then you'll definitely start to lose some fur. And see, here's a little chunk of brain right here. It's alright just to put that on the hide and just squish it on there and start working it in. But you can also, if you're tanning a deer skin or something and you have it on the frame for it to be stretching, you can get a big paintbrush and you can just rub it on plenty of times and just go through all of your brain mixture like you will during this process with animal skins that are like this. You'll go through all of the mixture, and once you've gone through all of it, the animal hide will be ready for the final drying process. And once you dry it, some people like to smoke their skin. What they'll do is they'll just kind of fold it, and it's like your case skin in it. If you have it like that, then you get some punk wood and just get a bunch of smoke going, and you can I've done before is made a tripod and just put some rope around the some of the pieces and kind of made almost like a spider web type of thing, and I set the squirrel skin down onto the string like that and put a tarp around the whole thing, and that'll give you good smoking because it'll go straight up through the very top of the tarp, almost like a teepee, and you'll have your squirrel skin right above where the smoke will be coming out at, but you don't want the fur sitting right on top of the smoke. You want it up off of it, because if you have it too close to it, then it'll cook the skin instead of smoking it, and that's what you don't want. It'll give it a real bad presentation. But if you do it the right way, then it'll turn out just like leather, and it'll be usable, and it'll last for many years. But as you can see, I'm just making sure I get it all in and around this nose and everything. If you got a few pieces that you want to trim off during this, then just have your knife by your side, and you can just trim off pieces when needed. But as you can see, head is getting pretty pliable already. Just work it in a little bit more around that nose. My nose, it dries, it'll take up quite a bit of liquid. There's a liquid brain solution right here, and that's alright if it takes it up. That it'll be nice and preserved. And as you can see right here, you got a little fold right through here on the skin. What you want to do is just push that fold up. That way you can get where that skin is overlapping, and then just start rubbing it in. And once you get it pretty flexible and get towards the end of your tanning solution, what you can do is just start pulling it a little bit by hand. And that'll also help during the softening process. It'll give it a little bit of a head start type of thing, and you'll be able to soften it up a whole lot easier in some areas if you do like that, and you won't have to do it as long. Softening the hide, that is one of the longest processes during the tanning process, is softening, because it just takes quite a while to get it soft and real pliable after it's been tanned. Sometimes it can take you, depending on the animal, it can take you several hours, or it can take you as little as 30 minutes or so, depending on just the size of the animal. But you just want to get it worked in all over the skin, get all on the legs and everything. What some people like to do, I don't really do this a whole lot, but what some people will do is they'll go around the edges and kind of make the squirrel skin like an oval almost, and they'll leave the tail on there, and that'll just give it a little bit more of a presentation. If you was gonna like hang this up in like your house, and you just wanted it to have a better looking shape, and you could do that. But I personally like having it just like it is once you cut it up the middle during the skinning process after it's been cased. But if you want to, you can leave this fur cased and still do this. And what you would do was just work on one side at a time. You'd use about half of your solution on one side, and just use half of it on the other side. Just do the same process and everything. Just make sure you get all up and around the face and everything, and the nooks and crannies, and you'll be good to go. But as you can see, its legs are already nice and pliable. So what I'm doing is just slowly pulling on it a little bit. I ain't putting a whole lot of pressure on it. You don't want to rip the hide, you just want to stretch it a little bit. But just make sure it gets all over the hide and everything. I'll see, like that piece right there, if you wanted to, you can just snip that and it'd just be straight right there until you get up to that leg. But it all, the looks of it all just depends on your preference, and how you skin it and everything. But if you do case skin it, then you don't have to worry about that. You just make any of the cuts on it that you would want to. But doing it this way, it's a little bit easier to soften the hide up because you can get it fully opened up. I won't have to really work on like if you was to work on one side and then once you got done with that side, you'd have to flip it over and you just have to keep going kind of back and forth and moving it all around just to make sure that you got every bit of it softened up and everything. But for small animals like this, or sometimes I'll do deer like this, I'll just cut them up the middle once they've been case skinned, and that'll help with the tanning process. And if you stretch them on like a square frame, and that's what you would have to do, is you would have to cut them up the middle and go around the very edges and cut tiny holes on the edges and put rope, or you can use twine through it or natural cordage. That's also your preference, but you just go through there and poke holes all around. And then what you want to do is have you frame, and all that you can do for a frame is just put some boards and nail them together and make a square, or you can also do it with logs and just tie the logs to each other. But if you, I have a boards that just some old scrap boards that have been nailed together, and they work pretty good. But you want to just, when you're stringing it up on the frame, you want to stretch it pretty good, and by stretching it, it can get it nice and stretched like you would a regular skin, and it'll also help with the drying process. It won't be all lumped over each other and everything. But as you can see, I'm just working it in here real good and everything. Making sure you especially get up here around the face. That's going to be your most concern. And if you're doing like a coon or something, then during the drying process on the board, you would normally have their tail already kind of split and separated. But on this squirrel here, I didn't really worry too much about the tail on here for like nailing it and stretching the tail as well. But it also did dry really nice and good. But if you want to leave the tail on here and you want to make sure to go through there and kind of open it up and make sure that you get in some of this tanning solution. But you can also use commercial tanning solution for this, but brain tanning, if you're going to take the animal and kill the animal, then you already got a free tanning solution right there, and you can use just about any type of water. There ain't really no specific water requirements for this. You just need it to be heated up and everything. But if you use tanning solution, then I think the name of it is called Trappers and Hunters Tanning Solution. And for that, all that you want to do is just get you a little sponge brush just like this one, and you want to just kind of go a little bit at a time, and make sure that you wear gloves when you're using that, because it will get on your hands and everything, and sometimes it can be really hard to get it off, and it being chemicals and stuff. But you just want to kind of rub it on there and just do a little bit at a time and just kind of squeeze some of it out. And with your gloves, you want to just go through there and just rub it in like you would this. And by rubbing it in, it'll get it all